Hey everyone, welcome to your final lecture for week 4. We're going to go a little bit more technical here than the theoretical stuff in the first two lectures. And we're going to focus specifically on evaluation writing, which will be your last assignment for this week. I wanted to start off by just defining evaluation itself. And this is all from the American Heritage Dictionary. They say evaluation is to determine the importance, effectiveness, or worth of, assess. And an example would be evaluate teacher performance, as you all often do at the end of semesters. I put in the etymology here, which is where the word came from. We get it through French, and the real central part of the word is the value or value as a noun part too. So the root of the word is kind of here. But I wanted to point that out just because this week is about ethics. It is about authenticity, and these are kind of things that we value, or they determine our own values. And so it all kind of fits together that way. I'll put a citation below. A lot of what you're looking at here comes from a book called Everything's an Argument, and I'll put a citation down below. But they simply describe what evaluations are, and it turns out they kind of start every day as casual arguments. We evaluate our outfits before we put them on, maybe thinking about, is this appropriate for chilling out all day? Is this appropriate for going to class, appropriate for a job interview, and so on. We might evaluate a coffee shop. Is this a place where I want to spend a Saturday afternoon? Is the music good? How are the lattes? And you could also evaluate playlists to bring us back to music. Again, thinking about, is this good for a rainy day? Is this good for chilling at the beach? Something like that. So we're always kind of unconsciously making evaluations pretty much everywhere we go with a lot of the decisions we make. And so with evaluations writing, we want to go from the unconscious level to the conscious level. By doing this, we uncover our own values, get back to the root of the word, our own motives, and our own preferences. And sometimes we can be talking about the values, motives, and preferences of the culture as well. You might see online articles like 10 best smartphones. Usually they're focusing on what's the most productive. And you can think about what values and preferences kind of underwrite what we do with our phones in this culture and what we value, such as productivity and work. I put World's Handsomest Man here. It's from People Magazine. I think it's actually World's Sexiest Man, but we're keeping it PG here. And again, if you look at that, typically the people who win that are famous people. And so you can start to think about how physical attractiveness becomes equated with fame and maybe even being materially wealthy. And so again, you start to see in the culture its values, its motives, its preferences. So this goes back all to what we were talking about last week with some of not only the spatial orientation stuff, but also the hip hop pedagogy and so on. So all things to think about that are in the background of evaluations. But when we get more technical, here are some places you tend to see them in business and in academia. So the formal ones, you can think about grades. Grades are obviously a very formal way of evaluating people. You might remember my labor-based grading that we're working in right now. I gave a description of it before we got started as a way of breaking down some of the cultural motives that are embedded in regular grading. And so evaluations can become this place where we start to rethink our culture or rethink what it is we value, as in we ourselves or we culturally value. And then at work, you'll think of performance evaluations. I'll give you an assignment on these. Again, I'll provide some more technical instructions on Canvas. I'm trying to give kind of a higher level overview here. So yeah, by looking at those, again, we uncover the values, motives, preferences of our organizations. And so from my labor-based system, you might think about UD a little bit differently because I'm a professor here or an instructor here. So again, that kind of uncovers some values that we prize here at UD. And then again, with performance evaluations, based on the questions that are being asked, you can kind of start to discover what are the preferences of your organization as well. Last thing on a technical kind of level, Criteria can be quantitative or qualitative. Some of the quantitative ones, if you're asked to rank something on a scale from 1 to 10, obviously statistics can be generated from that. And again, the same thing for failure through an A in a class. We can look at that and kind of quantify how students are doing. But they can be qualitative as well. Sometimes in an evaluation, you'll just see something like additional comments here. And both are equally valid and should probably be used in balance with one another. But they're just the two kind of criteria you see, and I'll ask you to work with both when I put the assignment up on Canvas. I have a negative example here of what makes bad criteria. This is called the Alexander case study. If anyone, I don't know if we have any finance or business majors, but you very well may have seen the Alexander case study before. The premise is that Alexander is this great employee. The only thing is he's not very collegial and isn't very much liked by his coworkers. And so in the case study, you're given a ton of information, and then you're asked to evaluate Alex. These are the criteria you're given. You can maybe pause the video here and read through them for yourself. But you're given this piece of information at the end. You fear that Alex will resign if the score is anything less than a 4. And so I think the point of the assignment is that you're supposed to go back and kind of question the roots of the evaluation. Because already, if you start to read some of the numbering here, you see that there's already kind of vague stuff in the parentheses, a 3, 4, and 5. At a 3, you're not ready for promotion. On 4, you're on track, but you could wait a year, which that's kind of vague about what it means, and does it mean wait a full year? And then exceeds expectations, should be promoted this year, which means sometime soon, I guess, but again, not a very clear time schedule. And so that's why I say this makes sort of for poor criteria. And again, you even see kind of vague words here, like most areas. And then for some reason, a better ranking exceeds in some areas, which again, it's not really clear how many that means. And then again, here at 1, needs improvement in all areas, but for some reason they get a point and are often terminated. And so they get 1 point, but are probably going to get fired. And so again, you kind of question the basis of the numbers. Like, should this maybe have started at 0? Because it means they're going to fail. And then lastly, this piece of information is meant to bias the reader. So we're given that he's on track for promotion, but if he's not ready for promotion, he's going to quit. And so again, it's supposed to be kind of a case study that gets you thinking about what is the basis of evaluation, and what really can be done with team members who are productive but maybe problematic. So what makes good criteria? That's kind of the opposite of the question. So good criteria make expectations clear. They tell you exactly which traits, which accomplishments specifically are being evaluated. And so in the last slide, I pointed out most areas or some areas, but really those points should be associated with particular traits, particular accomplishments, and that should dictate the number that you get on a scale like that. And here you can consider the values, motives, and preferences of the institution. And so if we're looking back here, we see improvement in all areas, some areas, most areas. We don't really know what those areas are. Are they asking us to think about how good of a coworker he is? Are they asking us to think about how productive of a coworker he is? And we don't really know. And so when you're writing your own evaluation criteria, you really should be thinking about these things so that you can make it clear what's being evaluated and what the preferences are of the institution. They should be laid out on a logical scale, as I mentioned in the last slide as well. It probably should have started at 0, but many different scales work. You can do 1 through 10. You can do the 5-star system, like I think Yelp uses. And then this is called the Likert scale. You might have seen it in a lot of different surveys you've taken. But basically very bad up through very good, and you get kind of bad, neutral, and good in between. So all of those again can be quantified in various ways, but the scale has to be logical and has to work for what you're doing. It can be thematic too. I think they're of like the tomato meter, tomatometer, however you say it, on on RottenTomatoes.com. And so if you have, if you have a theme you're working with, sometimes that's not a bad idea as well. And then lastly, they do not bias the evaluator. So try to stay as objective as you can in the wording of criteria. And so in the last example, you fear that Alex will resign. Again, that would be really, really biasing the evaluator, because now you have to think about, is it a 1 that gets him fired? Now we've brought it all the way up to a 3 that'll make him quit. And so you kind of cancel out available responses for your evaluator, which you don't want to do. And then qualitative feedback, as I mentioned, a question you can ask is, do you have additional comments? That would probably be a good way to get some qualitative data, versus can you list anything this person did wrong? Again, that would maybe be an example of biasing your evaluator, in the sense that you kind of prime them to start thinking about the bad things that this person has done. And so you might inherently get just more negative reviews based on that. So again, I'll give you some technical instructions for how to create your criteria in the assignment this week. It'll all be kind of based around that authentic authorship exercise. And again, I'm hoping you still enjoy writing about yourselves and using yourselves as experts in this course. So that'll be all for this week. Thanks, everyone. And I'll look forward to seeing what gets up on Canvas. Bye.